A decision out of Ottawa is sending shockwaves across rural Saskatchewan. The federal government has confirmed that Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada will close its satellite research farms in Scott and in Indian Head, Saskatchewan, part of a broader budget reductions that have already seen roughly 665 positions cut nationwide and nearly 1,050 employees receive notices in January. But for Saskatchewan, this is more than just staffing numbers. The Indian Head Research Farm was among the first 5 federal research farms established in 1885, a cornerstone of agriculture innovation for nearly 140 years. Now, the Scott Research Farm, founded in 1906, was part of a national wave of experimental stations that helped shape modern prairie farming. Agricultural economists warn that the closures could slow the development of high-yield crop varieties, weakening long-standing research partnerships and cost the province tens, if not millions of dollars in future agriculture grains. And Saskatchewan isn't alone. Nepean, Nova Scotia, and Portage la Prairie, Manitoba, along with major research and development centers in Guelph, Ontario, Quebec City, Quebec, and Lacombe, Alberta, are also slated to shut their doors. So what does this mean for producers, for municipalities, and the future of innovation in rural Saskatchewan? Now, we spoke with SARM President Bill Huber about the impact of these closures and what comes next for the communities that have relied on these research hubs for generations. This is Municipal Affairs.
You stepped up to serve your community. Now take your leadership to the next level. Introducing GEMS, Governance Essentials for the Municipal Sector, a practical, Saskatchewan-based training program designed for council members and those who support them. Whether newly elected or a seasoned leader, GEMS helps sharpen the skills that matter most: decision-making, accountability, financial stewardship, infrastructure oversight, and navigating the complex realities of municipal governance. This isn't your typical classroom. GEMS is flexible, online, and built for busy people. You don't need a university degree, just a commitment to good governance. For some, it's been years since taking a course. That's okay. GEMS is designed to build confidence and knowledge. There is a short assessment, but it's there to reinforce your learning, not to trip you up. If cost is a concern, talk to your administrator, as there may be grants available to offset some of the costs. Because when local leaders grow, entire communities benefit. GEMS, because good governance isn't just important, it's essential.
President Huber, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about the latest developments in the province of Saskatchewan, but also, I would say, across Canada right now. And that is the federal government's decision to close agricultural research facilities in the provinces of Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in Prince Edward Island, and in Manitoba. Yours locally is in Indian Head, and this is kind of hurting. And this is, from what I'm hearing on the ground, this is a decision that is not being taken lightly. From SARM's perspective, when did you hear about the closure, and what was your initial reaction?
Well, I can't. Thanks for that, Chris. It's about well over a week now since I first heard about it. It was last week someday, and then meetings started to roll out late last week. I know there was one in Indian Head, Saskatchewan, last Friday. I wasn't part of that meeting, but we did have one of our SARM directors there. I wasn't even notified or didn't even know about it actually until Tuesday morning. But anyway, we did have a representative there. APAS was there also in Suma. And it was a small gathering, I think, just an initial, more of a be aware of what's happened. So since then, I've really become involved on something that I'm really pushing for on my own through SARM, and I've got the staff and the rest of the board and executive on my side. And we even passed a motion yesterday that we're going to head to Ottawa as soon as we can get some meetings lined up with federal officials, the federal ag minister, the deputy minister, Lawrence Hanson, Buckley Belonza, the MP from the north, So those are things that we're going to be working on. Our staff is doing, they're hard at work right now. We'll probably try to meet with the Saskatchewan Conservative Caucus. So those are things that we're working on. But to get to the real hurt about the whole thing, it's something that really was beneficial. It still is. I guess they're not shut yet, and hopefully they're not. But it's so beneficial to our members in rural Saskatchewan. The research that's done not only in Indian Head and Scott, Saskatchewan, and Swift Current and Lacombe, but it's important to all of Canada, really. And it's really frustrating when you hear announcements like this, Chris, that that there's more closures and more cutbacks for Western Canada. We've lived through 10 years of that. There's a new face as the Prime Minister, and the ads keep coming out daily on national television that the federal government puts out to build one Canada, grow Canada together, how important the West is. Well, we need funding. We need research. We're in this province alone, we have 44% of the arable land in Saskatchewan, of all of Canada. And we got the best producers here in Saskatchewan. We grow pretty well every crop that's needed worldwide for food sustainability, from pulses to lentil or to oil seeds, cereals, malt, barley. The list goes on and on.
You talked about the benefits of this facility in Saskatchewan, particularly Indian Head. Now, I'm going to show my ignorance here a little bit, Bill, if you don't mind, but what were the benefits to the producers of Saskatchewan, the farmers of Saskatchewan? And give it to me in layman terms so that way I understand what this closure means for producers across Saskatchewan and why this is more of a big deal than most people would even imagine it could be.
Well, I personally haven't been at the research station for a number of years. I used to have an employee worked for me on my farming operation, and after he left our place, went there. So I visited him there a little bit. But my understanding is that there's so much research on seed varieties and different things like that. And it's so important to have that research done in a part of the province that is so adaptable for climate. The research station in Swift Current is located on the west side of the province. Indian Head is kind of the central, or even maybe a little closer to the east. But it's some of the more average or better farmland in all of Saskatchewan. And geographically, it's situated in a great place. It's right along the #1 highway. We don't experience severe droughts in that area of the province compared to the west and west central. And we don't experience the flooding that they do in the east and the northeast part of the province. And it's not sometimes a frost-free area too, compared to other parts of the province that may risk some frost concerns late August, early September that are devastating to crops. But the work that they've done there over the years is just phenomenal. And they do it with limited funding. I think the total budget for Indian Head is only $3.8 million. And there's just a little over 1,000 acres of arable land there that they do research on. So, $3.8 million in today's world in agriculture research is pretty minimum. And I know that the provincial government has received some funding from the feds in our announcements anyway. The money check hasn't cashed yet. But, $9.8 million for certain things. And there's another 4.5 for livestock. And, a few things like that. And some of it is earmarked for Indian Head, apparently. But it's so important to keep this facility open.
We are still very fluid in this situation as it's unfolding. We're still hopeful that things will change around and the federal government may wake up tomorrow and say, maybe we don't close all of them. We only close certain ones that might benefit that area and see the economic ramifications of a closure like Indian Head or even Lacombe. For yourself, as has been unfolding as president of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, what is your board saying? What is your members saying about this closure and how it could impact their own local economies when a research facility like Indian Head is closed up? Or are they telling you anything right now?
Well, our board certainly is. And I raised it along with our vice president. He's from the Swift Current area, so he's very familiar with the research station at Swift Current. But, we also got to remember Scott. We got members in the northwest part of the province too. And that one is just as important to those folks up there and all of agriculture, not just their area, but it sustains some of their small towns in that area too for the employees that work there and the jobs that are going to be lost. Indian Head's close to where I live, so I guess I'm more, involved with that one or concerned about it. But we got to think of all of them, and we got a lot of producers in this province that are directly related to livestock and livestock alone. And the livestock research is done at the Lacombe Research Station. And I've been there several times over the years when I was really heavily involved in the livestock industry. And we can't lose that. We're in a situation in Canada right now where our cow numbers are decreasing because of age of producers, because of drought conditions. Our ranchers in the west and southwest haven't been able to source feed. So we need to have that research there, even if we can't grow our numbers to where they were, that we could still produce as many pounds of beef as we did in the past, with heavier carcasses that are still going to grade and be the same quality. So much is involved for the benefit of agriculture, which is so important, not only to Saskatchewan and our people that thrive on it or depend on it for their livelihoods, but to the whole economy and the GDP of Canada. And I think the feds have to really wake up and realize how important Western Canada is to them. People are frustrated. There's talk of separation. There's a plebiscite going around in Alberta right now. And there's talk of it in our own farmyard at home from my sons and their neighbors that are farming, how frustrated they are. And maybe we'd be better off if we were separated and went it alone. But it'll never happen in my lifetime. But that's just an example of how things are going here. We're going through some difficult times. And announcements like this and cuts on research just makes it worse.
Can I play devil's advocate with you for 2 seconds here, Bill? I would say, and I would say this as respectfully as I possibly can, there has been calls from all sectors, all parts of this country saying that the federal government has been bloated over the last few years. We have seen an increase in public servants who are working in Ottawa, and there is a fiscal reality that we have to live in, and we have to make some hard choices. Now, you as an elected official, as a councillor, as a reeve, you have to make some tough decisions that not 100% are going to agree on.
Right.
This is a decision that is going to affect Saskatchewan. Yes, it's the local economies of Indian Head and area and Scott and area. How do you balance your opposition to this closure with the realities that we need to get our fiscal house in order in Ottawa, and that means federal government may have to make some tough choices that is going to affect the Saskatchewan economy?
Well, I totally agree. And that is so true. We have to balance the spending. And there's been, spending in the eastern part of the country. I'll just go back a number of years ago with the bailout of General Motors. There was billions of dollars spent there, billions. We asked for a bailout for some of our producers in Western Saskatchewan because we've got 6 or 8 municipalities that are devastated from 9 years of drought, and we can't get $1 for them. We've brought in too much immigration. We've overdone it there. I'm not opposed to immigration in any way, but we have to have people that are coming here that have some kind of a skill set, can speak English fluently, to communicate. Canada is one of the best countries in the world to live in, but we have give away so much of our wealth to other countries, and we may have to help some of them in the future, and we've done a lot in the past. But this part of the country, Western Canada, from Manitoba west to the ocean, is a big part of this nation. And in this province alone, we've got everything here for crops and livestock production, some of the largest sheep operations in Canada, some of the largest hog operations, livestock operations. We haven't got a kill plant or huge feedlots, but we are sustainable and trying to build that, And the money that they spend in some parts is just mind-boggling some days, and we need a little support out here.
I want to turn to the future because you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that SARM will be hopefully making a trip out to Ottawa to hopefully speak with Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald, with Secretary of State MP Bucky Boulanger, and potentially other stakeholders in Ottawa about what the realities on the ground for these closures will mean. What's your message that you will be bringing to Ottawa when you get there? And you and I've chatted over a few times over the last few months around what's happened in China around canola with Premier Mo and Prime Minister Carney going to see if we can reduce those tariffs around canola. What will be your message, and are you optimistic that people in Ottawa are willing to listen to you?
Well, they're going to listen. Yeah, but whether they hear us, that's kind of my saying. It is the other question. And I got to say that I've met Heath MacDonald on 2 or 3 occasions. I had the pleasure of spending a whole afternoon with him last June with our Minister of the Day in Saskatchewan, the Honorable Daryl Harrison, and we visited a farm at Davidson, and that was a great day, you know. And he's a wonderful individual, and he has an open mind and is willing to listen to us. We met him again for an hour when we were in Ottawa last fall. But we're hopeful that they totally understand. And the message that we're going to try and convey to them is that how important this agriculture economy is, and the grains and oilseed business in this province to the GDP. You know, the tariffs on canola that were put in last March of 25, you know, and I praise the Premier and the Prime Minister and Cody Blois for the work they did and to take the initiative and travel to China. That's the first time, and I think was it 6 or 9 years, that our leaders and officials have been there. And I commend them for that. And maybe, you know, the tariffs are, you know, that are supposed to be off March 1, and it's a year agreement, the way I understand it. But hopefully it's a step in the right direction. But I also want to make sure, or I hope they understand the same as we do and our members, that don't ignore the United States. Don't poke the bear, I guess, down there, because things change every morning when you wake up. Honestly, there's a new message or a new threat from President Trump, and I don't know if he's serious some days. But you know, we've been very fortunate with tariffs so far. It hasn't affected our agriculture producers greatly, but who knows what could happen tomorrow morning. But we got to remember that the U.S. is our closest and largest trading partner, and then China and India. But I got to commend our government here in Saskatchewan too for the work they've done in the last number of years to find new markets in other countries. We had the pleasure of talking to a high official with CPKC Rail yesterday in our office, in our boardroom. And he commended the provincial government on some of the trade initiatives that they did, and Minister Merritt was part of them years ago with Mexico, and the mounted grain and stuff that's moving to Mexico now on CPKC Rail, and you know, it's picking up all the time. So those are things we got to be thankful for. But we still need the U.S. and we still need China, and we need India for pulses especially. But we need the other 160 some countries that we trade with too. But agriculture in Western Canada is huge. So is the oil and gas industry and the mining industry. And they got to realize that our people out here have to have a return on investment to continue to stay in business.
So going back just quickly, my last question before I let you go, President Huber, and that is, what haven't I asked you that you want people of Saskatchewan and even Canada who listen to this or watch this around how this closure will affect the economy of Saskatchewan, but also the producers and farmers of Saskatchewan, and even at the end of the day, Canada as well, that you want to make sure people understand?
Well, I want them to understand that we're working for them. We're working for our members, and you know, I've grew up on a farm. I've farmed all my life, and I still have 2 sons that are farming, and they depend on it. They haven't got our farm jobs; their wives do, but they're agriculture parts too, and how important agriculture is. But I want them to know that my heart and soul is in agriculture. And we got other things that are issues in this province: healthcare, rural crime, and infrastructure. But you know, we're mandated by the provincial government back in 1905 to represent our agriculture producers in this province. And I want to make sure that SARM, on behalf of my efforts, we get that done. And by moving and going to Ottawa, maybe we have to go 3-4 times a year, but we have to be there and present in a face-to-face meeting sometime with these federal officials is pretty meaningful and beneficial, I think. Especially if we can do it with level heads and cool minds, I think we can accomplish a lot. We have to get along. We don't always agree with what they do and some of the other decisions they make, but I think by keeping a cool level head and approaching it in a real professional manner is very beneficial to us. And as long as I'm leader of this organization, I will continue to do that and try and build respect for this industry.
President Huber, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in for another edition of Municipal Affairs, the show where we take a closer look at the people, the policies, and yes, the practical decisions shaping local governments across Canada. Now, each episode is designed to dig beneath the headlines and bring forward real conversations about the challenges and, yes, even opportunities facing municipalities of all sizes in all provinces and all territories. Now, if today's discussion was useful or even thought-provoking, we encourage you to subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues, your family, your friends, and any municipally minded professional who cares about strong local governance. Also, visit crossbordernetwork.ca to learn about how you can join a future episode of Municipal Affairs and contribute to the national conversation on municipal issues. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs shortly. Till then, everyone.